I did. I watched it. I regret it. Don't watch this anime. There's only one word that can be used to describe this show, and it's this. Rick and Morty, regardless of one's own opinion on it, is one of the most popular and recognisable series airing right now. Rick and Morty the anime, regardless of how popular the original show is one of the most confusing and baffling greenlights that I've ever seen. I know that a lot of Western IP are getting anime adaptations nowadays, and perhaps Rick and Morty just wanted to get ahead of the trend, but seriously, who was asking for this? Who watched Rick and Morty, something that was already a cartoon, and thought, now this is what needs to be an anime? Personally, I'd rather watch an anime adaptation of the Alien franchise, although that begs the question, is the human mind ready to see chibi aliens running around? Maybe they'll go the extra distance and make it an ecchi where all the female characters have massive, gravity-defying boobies, including the xenomorph. The point is, who was asking for this? No one, as far as I can tell. And it looks like anyone who was potentially interested in this dropped it after watching the first couple of episodes. And that's because this show sucks. Usually I'd give you a brief plot synopsis in these videos to give you a little taste of the story. But with this anime, I genuinely can't, because I don't really know what happened. The story for this show is told in the most unnecessarily convoluted way, with us jumping back and forth in time, and also back and forth between dimensions and different Ricks and Mortys. Yes, this is another multiverse story to add to the growing dumpster fire. Although in Rick and Morty's defense, they have done plenty of multiverse stories before. Now I do know that it's a requirement to have a very high IQ to understand Rick and Morty, and I am the type of person to lose to a mouse in a game of Connect 4, stupid mouse. So perhaps this show was just too smart for me, but I kept sitting there waiting for these meandering plot threads to all end up intertwining and resulting in some kind of big reveal. But that doesn't really happen. Instead, the show just sort of nudges you and tells you what's actually happening at a certain point. And even then, you're still a little confused on how exactly we got here. Honestly, I think I might have understood this anime story better if I had my eyes closed. Maybe it's my fault. I did watch this in Japanese with the subtitles turned off. I'm kidding, but I'd have been equally entertained had I not been able to tell what the characters were saying. Speaking of which, the characters here are not like the ones that you're used to. Rick and Morty don't feel like Rick and Morty, nor does anyone else feel like the characters they're meant to be. And that's a major issue considering that these are the same versions of the characters from the main show and not alternate variants. So there isn't much character consistency between this anime and the original. Although there's also not much consistency between the tone and humour and everything that made Rick and Morty from the main series and this anime. Morty is just a whiny little wimp in the anime, and that's it. No extra layers of complexity, just crying and generally doing nothing else. Rick is like a cardboard cutout compared to who we're used to seeing. Summer is fairly similar, but the show forgets that she exists most of the time. Beth is just there too. Space Beth feels like she cares about her family far too much, and Jerry might be dumb in the anime, but he lacks a lot of the cowardice and dislike for Rick that makes him so memorable. There is also an original character in here to act as Morty's girlfriend. She's basically the MacGuffin for this whole show, but if you were hoping that maybe there'd be something interesting to her here, then no, she's as bland and boring as the rest of the series. The only thing that she brings to this anime is some wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff, something that the original show always tried to avoid. Maybe if the original cast returned for the English dub, then maybe at least that would have felt like Rick and Morty, but sadly, none of the English cast reprised their roles for this, which of course makes it even harder to recommend this to Rick and Morty fans. Also, unlike the original series, this anime is just one story. This isn't episodic, so it feels like we're just slogging through this dull, monotonous narrative for the entire run. Maybe this whole thing could have been saved by some great animation and fight scenes, but unfortunately, this anime was made by Studio Deen. apparently. Honestly, it was very hard to find any information on this series. And Studio Deen are famous for animating the breathtaking battle between Meliodas and Escanor. And you can see that same quality across the scenes in this anime. Actually, scratch what I just said, because I've just dug a little deeper and it seems like the animation was actually done by Telecom Animation Film. Although it does look like Studio Deen is involved in some way. Telecom Animation Film are the same studio that's currently animating the absolutely gorgeous Blue Box anime. So I have no idea how the animation looks so weak in this series, because you'd assume that an IP like Rick and Morty would only get the best treatment and get loads of money and care thrown behind it. But I guess not. Now, to be fair, I don't think this anime looks awful. In fact, the opening actually looks pretty good, and the song is quite unique too, in my opinion. But the animation in these episodes is often very choppy, and the explosions in this series might be some of the most pathetic explosions that I've ever seen. Not just because of the animation, but also the sound effects being really lame. If you're going to have an explosion, it's got to have some oomph. Then there's the art style that a lot of people will bounce right off of. This anime looks like it came from the mind of Dr. Seuss, not Rick and Morty. Everything is really lacking in detail, which wouldn't be an issue if it led to fluid animation, but it doesn't, so the art style feels a little jarring and a little ugly, at least for me. Although it didn't take too long for me to get used to it. Genuinely, I wouldn't be surprised if in a future Rick and Morty episode, you see them mock this anime or said it was actually alternate versions of the characters, and that they killed them just like the Space Jam versions, because this feels nothing like Rick and Morty. This is something Rick and Morty would parody and take the mick out of. There is a scene here where a bunch of aliens all sing to a statue of Space Morty to celebrate and commemorate his life, and it is done with all sincerity. This is meant to be an emotional moment. Could you see the original Rick and Morty doing this? I can't, unless it was a parody, but this wasn't, this was serious. And this little scene highlights the big question that this anime leaves you with. Why? Why does this exist? No one asked for it, no one was even excited about it when it was announced, and no one watched it. And no one is really talking about it either. The only reason I'm talking about it is because I decided to sit through all 10 episodes, and I'd like to at least get something out of it. Rick and Morty the anime is a waste of your time, and you shouldn't watch it. Which I do feel bad saying, because the director seems like a nice dude and a legitimate Rick and Morty fan. Unfortunately, this series just did not come together at all. Or at least, that's what I think. What about you? Are you one of the 7 other people who saw this anime? Did you like it or not? And what other Western IPs would you like to see get the anime makeover? I really want to see that xenomorph in all her glory. But do let me know the answers to all those questions down in the comments below, and whilst you're down there, do leave a like, it really helps me out and makes me happier. And do consider subscribing too. I make a video every week and I'd love to have you become a regular viewer. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.